A lot of people imagine SHTF starts with utter chaos, but realistically, the first 24 hours could very well be very different. Confusion, uncertainty, rumors, small problems slowly becoming bigger ones. And during those first few hours, the decision people make can have a major impact on how well they handle the days ahead. So let's walk through a realistic suburban SHTF scenario of the first 24 hours of a major disaster and how you might react in a similar situation. The evening starts like any other. You stop at the local gas station to fill up your truck on the way home from work. You watch the traffic go by, making their way home as well. Mama's Cafe, across the street, it's busy as usual. Then suddenly, the gas pump shuts off. At first, you assume it's just a problem with the pump itself. But then the lights under the canopy go dark. You look up, and you see the restaurant across the street has lost power too. You look towards the intersection nearby. Every traffic light has switched over to flashing red. Now you know it isn't just your pump. A few people around you start pulling out their phones. You check yours too. No signal. The phone works fine. It's mostly charged. It just reads, "No service." One of the other drivers at the pumps looks over and says he can't get cell service either. That's the moment the situation starts feeling slightly different. Power outages happen from time to time. But power outages combined with communication failures? That gets your attention. You don't know what's happening. And honestly, you hope you're not overreacting. But a lot of systems stopped working at the exact same time. You shake your head, you're not sure, but you decide to head into the store. The emergency lights are dim. Customers are confused, and the clerk is trying to explain that the credit card machines stopped working. You grab a few items anyway. A 12-pack of water, some extra AA batteries, some snacks and comfort foods. This is stuff you normally wouldn't even think about, and it's not like you need them. But if this outage lasts longer than normal, these small comforts are going to matter later. When you get to the counter, the clerk shrugs and tells you that the cash register is down. You hand him a couple of 20s. Just ring it up when the power comes back on, you tell him, and keep the change. The clerk smiles and nods, probably still assuming the lights will be back on soon. And if they do, well, he got a decent tip. But as you walk back outside, you're not so sure. As you pull away from the gas station, the entire area feels strangely quiet. The usual glow from businesses is gone. Streetlights are dark. You pass the small grocery store a few blocks away. There's no power there either. A few people are still standing around in the parking lot. Probably customers who were already inside when everything shut down. For a moment, you consider stopping. Maybe grabbing a few more supplies while you still can. But you already have a solid food storage at home. And standing around in another dark parking lot, that's not something you really want or need to do. So you keep driving. The further you go, the darker everything becomes. Most of the neighborhoods are eerily quiet. You roll down your windows some. A few people stand around outside talking in their driveways. Flashlights move through dark windows. The neighborhoods sound different without electricity. No air conditioners, no televisions, no hum from nearby houses. Then, somewhere off in the distance, you hear the faint sound of a generator running. Not loud, just enough to remind you some people are already making adjustments. As you drive further into the neighborhood, every house remains dark. A few minutes later, you pull into your driveway. The garage door opener doesn't work. No worries. You leave your truck in the driveway. You grab your flashlight out of your pocket and you head inside. Your wife already has a battery-powered lantern sitting on the kitchen counter. The first thing she says is,
"My dad called a little while ago."
You stop for a second. He called? That's late for him. She nods.
He sounded calm, but I could tell something was wrong. He asked if we were all right. Then he said something was going on over there. And then the call dropped.
You ask if she's heard from him since. She shakes her head no. There's still no signal.
I'm a little worried about him.
That old Marine can more than handle himself, you say with a slight chuckle. Then you explain what happened at the gas station. The dead pumps, the businesses going dark, the flashing intersection lights, all the phones being down. And for the first time that night, both of you quietly realize this may not be a normal outage. There's no panic, there's no fear, just a growing feeling that something larger may be happening. So you pull out the emergency AM/FM radio. You turn it on, and at first, it's mostly static. A few stations are completely off the air. Then finally, a weak voice pushes through the interference. Officials are currently working to restore power in your area. Residents are advised to remain in their homes and shelter in place. Please remain calm and monitor emergency broadcasts for updates. You look over at your wife. Something about this message feels a little off. It's vague. No town names, no counties, no estimated timeline, just in your area. And since when did they tell you to monitor emergency broadcasts or shelter in place for just a power outage? That's the moment both of you stop waiting for updates and you start quietly getting a few things in order. You bring out your generator in your backyard and you fire it up. Then you head out into the garage. You start checking things like flashlights, electric lanterns, battery banks, and radios. You and your wife begin double checking your supplies and organizing your equipment. Eventually, well into the night, you finally shut the generator down. The sudden silence inside the house feels strange. You recheck the locks on the doors and windows. Then you sit down on the couch, planning to stay awake a little longer, just to keep an eye on things. But the truth is, you're exhausted. Sleep doesn't come easy, though. Every little sound outside seems louder than normal now. And even when you finally drift off, it isn't restful sleep. Then suddenly, something shakes you on your shoulder. For a second, you're disoriented. Then you hear your wife's voice.
Honey, wake up. Listen.
Sunlight is already coming through the windows. You must have slept longer than you intended. Then you hear it. Aircraft. Multiple aircraft. Low enough that the sound carries clearly across the neighborhood. Then helicopters. More than one. You walk towards the window. Several neighbors are already outside looking up. The neighborhood still has no power. No air conditioners, no televisions, no normal morning noise. Just the sound of military aircraft moving overhead. Your wife looks over at you.
Do you think they're headed towards the airbase?
You keep listening for another moment. The airbase is nearly 50 miles away. Close enough that military aircraft aren't unusual once in a while, but not this many, and not flying this low. Another helicopter passes overhead. The uneasy feeling you went to sleep with the night before suddenly feels much harder to ignore. You check your phone again. Still, no service. After a bit, you step outside. The neighborhood feels different in daylight. More people are outside than normal now. A few are running generators. Since several other neighbors are running generators, you decide you're going to turn yours back on for a little while. Enough to cool down the refrigerator and the freezer. And to make some coffee. Honestly, after the night you just had, the routine itself helps more than you expected. You step back outside and you notice your neighbor climbing into his car. You believe this mess? He says with a laugh. Couldn't even make coffee this morning. He tells you he's headed into work anyway. Hopefully there's electricity out there somewhere. You nod, but quietly, you make a mental note of it. Deep down, you're starting to suspect this may be more than just a temporary inconvenience. A few minutes later, you head back inside. Your wife looks up at you.
I'm guessing you're not going to work.
You shake your head. No, I think this is getting serious enough that I'm staying here today. Then after a short pause, besides, even if I wanted to call in, I've got no way to reach anybody. Your wife nods. She normally works from home, but with no internet, there isn't much she can do either. At this point, you decide you're going to take things up a notch. Better safe than sorry. So both of you start preparing for the possibility that this outage may last much longer than anyone thinks. You decide to fill up the water bob in the bathtub. You have a 55-gallon water drum full in your garage, and you have a rain collection system connected to the gutter in the backyard. But 100 extra gallons of water in the water bob? That could be a game changer if this outage keeps going. After an hour or so, you notice your neighbor pulling back into his driveway. This time, when you step outside, he doesn't look inconvenienced anymore. Now he looks uncertain. He tells you his workplace was completely shut down. A few of his coworkers were still standing around in the parking lot trying to figure out what was happening. Nobody had answers, just rumors. Somebody claimed the outages were affecting multiple states. Somebody else said parts of the interstate were barely moving. A third coworker swore martial law was being declared and that they were shutting down state borders. Your neighbor just shakes his head. Honestly, I think people are just talking at this point. You nod. Rumors spread fast when nobody has real information. And already, it's becoming obvious that uncertainty is starting to affect how people think. Then he tells you that he stopped by the grocery store on the way home. That place was kind of crazy. He describes it not so much as chaotic, but it was definitely tense. Bottled water was going fast. Canned food was too. The store was only taking cash. And apparently, a lot of people were not prepared for that. Some people were just leaving shopping carts behind. Others were arguing near the registers. He says he managed to grab a few things anyway, mostly water and some canned food. After a short pause, he says, "A cop was pulling in as I was leaving." He shrugs. I don't know what was starting, but people definitely seemed irritated. Actually, come to think of it, a lot of cop cars were on the roads this morning. You two chit-chat for another minute or two, then you head back inside. Your wife can tell immediately from your expression that something has changed.
That bad?
You shrug slightly. It's not chaos or anything like that, at least not yet. But people are starting to realize this might last longer than they thought. You tell her about the grocery store, the shelves thinning out, the cash-only lines, the police presence around town. Then the rumors, martial law, borders shutting down, wild speculation already starting to spread. Your wife shakes her head slightly.
People always do that when they're scared.
You nod. Maybe. But deep down, the growing uncertainty is starting to bother both of you. It's about that time you decide to pull out the ham radio, mostly out of curiosity. You never spent much time using it, never even got around to getting your license. But right now, it feels like one of the only ways left to hear anything outside of your neighborhood. You slowly scan through frequencies, mostly static, broken transmissions. Then finally, voices. Weak, interrupted, difficult to fully understand.
Multi-state outage.
Traffic is backed up for miles.
Interstate completely stopped.
Accidents everywhere. People are abandoning their vehicle.
You never fully catch which interstates they're talking about, or even which states, for that matter. Just fragments, tiny pieces of a much larger picture. After a few more minutes of listening, you finally shut the radio back off, mostly to conserve battery, but also because the little bits of information you are hearing aren't making either of you feel any better. Your wife looks over at you.
Do you think we should leave?
You think about it for a moment. Your wife mentions her father again. For a moment, both of you consider it seriously. The truck's tank is still sitting a little over 3/4 full. Enough to get close. Maybe. But maybe not. Not without finding another gas station somewhere along the way. And right now, there's no guarantee any pumps are even working. You think about the dead gas station from the night before. The traffic. The reports from town. The interstate rumors all over the radio. Leaving now could mean abandoning most of your supplies, only to end up stranded somewhere between here and your father-in-law's place. You look back over at your wife. If things get bad enough, maybe. But then after a short pause, but right now, I think staying here makes more sense. Your wife is quiet for a moment before she slowly nods. She already understands the problems. Her father's place is an option. Maybe even a good one if the situation keeps getting worse. But not yet. Not while the roads are uncertain. Not while fuel is questionable. And not while most of your supplies are still here. Leaving too early could create more problems than it solves. So for now, both of you agree staying put still makes the most sense. However, your plans are starting to change. The two of you begin sorting through food in the refrigerator and the freezer. At first, the idea was simply to keep everything cold by running the generator for intermediate periods throughout the day. But the more you think about it, the more both of you realize that the fuel for the generator will run out within a few days. And if the power continues to stay out, a lot of that food is going to spoil. So you both decide to start cooking what you can. If the power comes back on tomorrow, some of it can always be refrozen again later. But if it doesn't, at least the food won't go to waste. In the kitchen, the stovetop still works because the burners run on gas. But you can't get the oven on. It's an electric ignition. You really don't feel like pulling it out from the wall to hook it up to the generator. So cooking becomes a combination of stovetop and microwave while the generators are running. Hours pass. At some point, you stop checking your watch entirely. The entire afternoon becomes cooking food, filling containers, organizing it, and occasionally checking the radio for any new updates. By mid-afternoon, you realize there are more people outside than usual. Without televisions, internet, or cell phones to distract them, the neighborhood feels strangely quiet. Every now and then, you hear the low hum of a generator somewhere off in the distance. At this point, you've already turned yours off when you completed your marathon cooking. Next door, you notice several neighbors gathering in your neighbor's driveway. People standing around talking quietly. Nothing about it feels panicked, but it also doesn't feel normal. As you walk over, your neighbor is already talking about what he saw in town earlier that day. The shelves were getting cleared out fast, he says. Water was almost gone by the time I left. The cop showed up when I was leaving. A few neighbors exchange uneasy looks. Then another neighbor speaks up. She says she just got back from the grocery store herself. This time, the mood has changed. That place was shut down, she says. They were boarding up the front windows. She pauses for a second. It looked like there may have been some kind of brawl or something happened inside. I don't know. Nobody says much. Then quietly she adds, I honestly don't know how I'm supposed to feed my kid if this keeps going. Standing near the edge of the group is Paul, calm as usual, confident, already trying to reassure people before anyone even asks. There's an uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then Paul immediately steps in.
Hey, I've got food.
He gives her a reassuring smile.
Come by later. I'll help you out.
The woman looks relieved almost instantly. And right about then, Terry walks up. Quiet guy, former Army, mostly keeps to himself. He catches the tail end of that conversation.
Might not want to advertise that too loudly.
Paul gives a small shrug.
I think we're still a long way from people attacking each other over canned food.
The comment isn't openly hostile, but there was a slight dismissiveness behind it. You could tell Terry noticed it. The two of them have never really gotten along. Different politics, different personalities, different ways of looking at the world. And if you had to be honest, you've always suspected Paul quietly assumes Terry's time in Iraq left him expecting the worst in people. Well, that may explain why Terry tends to keep people at a distance. Another neighbor shifts uncomfortably before finally asking, so what happens if all of this keeps going? Almost without realizing it, the question seemed to be directed towards Terry. Terry doesn't answer right away. He just gives a small nod. Then Paul speaks up again.
Everybody just needs to relax a little. The power's out. This has happened before. That's all this is right now.
A few people nod, but not nearly as confidently as they might have earlier this morning. Paul continues.
Come on, man. Let's not go to extremes over an inconvenient power outage.
Paul keeps talking, saying that the utility crews are probably overwhelmed. The stores will restock eventually, and that people are getting themselves worked up way too fast. Most of the group seems eager to believe him. Terry says nothing for a while, just stands there quietly listening. Then finally, he gives a small nod.
I hope you're right.
And with that, he heads back towards his house. You stay quiet through most of this, mainly just listening, making mental notes. Who seems calm? Who seems nervous? Who's already preparing mentally for things to get worse? And who still believes normal life is about to resume at any minute? After another minute or two, the conversation starts drifting into smaller side discussions. You make an excuse and then quietly head back towards your house. You tell your wife about the conversation, about Paul trying to calm everyone down, and about Terry warning people to be careful. Your wife is quiet for a moment.
Who were they all listening to?
Both, kinda. You lean back slightly. Some people still want to believe this is temporary. Then, after a short pause, you add, but others are starting to look at Terry a little differently. Your wife is quiet for a moment after you finish talking.
People usually listen to whoever makes them feel better.
You look over at her. She shrugs slightly.
At least in the beginning.
As evening approaches, You realize the water pressure is dropping significantly. At first, it's subtle. The kitchen faucet sputters slightly. Then, a few minutes later, you notice it again. This time, worse. Air spits through the pipes for a second before water finally pushes through, but nowhere near the pressure it had earlier in the day. You and your wife exchange a look immediately. No words are needed. A few minutes later, you notice people outside. Not panic, but definitely concern. People are checking their outdoor faucets, talking to each other across driveways, asking each other about their water pressure. You step outside and immediately realize it's not just your house. Several neighbors are already standing near the street, talking. The mood feels noticeably different now. Still confused, but also way more uneasy. One neighbor says their toilets are barely refilling. Another says that the water at their kitchen sink sputtered brown for a couple seconds. That seems to get everyone's attention. Then somebody mentions that they stopped by Terry's house a little earlier. They said that Terry was filling water containers and checking some equipment in his garage. Another neighbor asks, "Does he think the water's about to stop completely?" The first neighbor shrugs. He didn't really say. Then, after a short pause, "But he definitely seems concerned." Nobody's laughing that comment off this time. Paul steps forward and again tries to reassure everyone.
The water system's probably just lost backup power somewhere. Let's face it, the utility crews are probably overwhelmed. These pressure fluctuations happen during outages sometimes.
A few neighbors nod along with him. You get the sense they want him to be right. They want this to still be temporary. But looking around the group, you can also see something else starting to spread across people's faces. Concern. Real concern. And standing there, listening to everyone, you quietly realize something. The neighborhood is starting to understand that this may be more than just an inconvenient power outage. Then suddenly, 2 military helicopters pass overhead, low enough that several people stop talking for a moment to watch them. The sound slowly fades off into the distance. Nobody seems entirely sure what to make of it anymore. For a few seconds, the whole group just stands there quietly. And then, little by little, people start drifting back towards their houses. The conversations are growing shorter now, more subdued. You linger outside for another minute or so, looking down the street as the last bit of daylight begins to fade away. Then, you turn and head back into your house as well. Your wife can already tell something has changed outside. You don't say much. You don't have to. You pull the ham radio back out and start scanning frequencies again. Mostly static, broken conversations. Then finally, a voice cuts through clearly enough to understand pieces of it.
Multiple businesses are being hit.
Crowds moving through downtown.
There's looting going on at...
The transmission cuts out again. You look over at your wife. Neither of you say anything for a moment. Then quietly, you stand up. You walk to the bedroom closet, and you pull the shotgun from your gun safe. The 2011 pistol you keep by your bed, it's now on your hip. Your wife follows suit. She grabs her small .380 pistol. A few minutes later, you find yourself checking the doors and windows again. You already know that they're locked, but checking them anyway, somehow it makes you feel a little bit better. And for the first time since the outage began, you realize you're no longer just preparing for inconvenience. You're preparing for the possibility that things may actually start getting worse. You stand near the front window for a little while, watching the neighborhood get darker and darker. A few generators still hum in the distance. The whole neighborhood feels different now. It feels tense. After another minute, you step back from the curtains and you draw them closed. You think about it for a minute, then decide to run your generator a little while longer too. At least for a few more hours tonight. It'll give the refrigerator and freezer time to cool back down. One last time. Your meals today were all perishable goods. Tomorrow's will be as well. With other generators still running nearby, you figure you won't stand out much, at least not yet. Your wife agrees quietly as you head out to the backyard. The first 24 hours without power has already changed the neighborhood. It's changed people. And as darkness settles in, you quietly decide you're going to stay much more alert tonight than you were last night. As you sit quietly by the window, you realize something. The outage wasn't the big story anymore. That story was starting to shift. Now, it was becoming about how people around you were beginning to react to it. The decisions they were starting to make because of it. And the decisions you may soon have to make for your own family. You find yourself thinking about your father-in-law again. The call. whatever it was he was trying to tell you before the connection dropped. And whether staying here or trying to get to his place would still be the right choice if things got worse. Tomorrow, you may find yourself weighing those options again. Remember, there isn't always one perfect answer. The right decision often depends on the information you have at the time. Based on what you've seen here during the first 24 hours, what would you do next? Would you stay? Or would you start considering other options? Tell us in the comments down below. For more on this and other prepper topics, be sure to check out the website linked below. There is over a decade's worth of material and knowledge there. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out. Thanks for watching.